Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, Anita Finley.
Live and in full color is Leslie Curtis. Leslie has such a fine reputation. There isn't a place that I don't go that when she knows that I talk about Leslie Curtis, who's the Director of Business Development, Regents, Boca, Raton, all this applause. Yay, Leslie. You've been around for a long time. You know, you're still a very young woman. How does everyone think you've been around for so long, Leslie?
Yes, I have been.
You were a child when you started, right?
Right. I mean, I did bedside nursing for 15, 20 years.
What's bedside nursing, Leslie?
Well, in the old days, you didn't have all CNAs. The nurse actually was at the bedside, giving you your medications in the hospital, I'm talking. Doing your wound care, a lot more. Now it's much more fractured, even in the hospital. So when I was I worked ICU, so I'd have my two patients, 3 on a bad day, and, you did everything. So it's changed a lot now. You don't really see the nurse that often unless they come to give you a medication, in the hospital. So... But anyway, so I did that for probably about 15 years, and then I moved and went to, I worked for an insurance company doing case management. And I went from there to working in acute rehab, and that's when I fell in love with rehab.
Acute rehab. What's acute rehab compared to rehab?
Acute rehab, it's hospital-based. So a place like...
Well, Holy Cross.
Holy Cross has got acute rehab, Pinecrest.
So like when Bill had his knee and hip operation and he was there, that was called acute rehab.
If he went there at Holy Cross?
Yes.
Yes.
So before he came home, he had 3 days there of acute rehab.
Okay.
Is that right? They did rehab and twice a day. That's acute.
Right. And then it's a different license because it's a hospital license. And then skilled nursing, or subacute, as some people like to call it, is skilled nursing level. So we offer the same services, but we don't offer 3 hours of therapy a day that acute rehab has to. And there's different guidelines under Medicare and who will qualify for acute rehab versus going to a subacute.
Okay, so your article in the November issue was Short-Term Rehabilitation Maximizes Recovery at Regents, Boca, Raton. Explain what that means.
Well, people go to the hospital and say they have a joint replacement, or they might just go in the hospital because they've had surgery. They have their qualifying Medicare stay, which is 3 days, and then it's time for them to leave. Well, if they go directly home, they're weak. And their chance for something bad happening, like a fall or just things not going right, are pretty high. So they come to Regents Park, and they get the nursing care, they get the rehab, so that we know when we discharge them, they're safe to go home. I mean, think about having your hip done and then going directly home after a couple of days in the hospital. It's you don't really know how to use a walker. You don't learn that quickly. So we do all that. We make sure that they're going to be safe in their environment. If they live alone, do they have stairs? There's all these different issues that you have to look at before you send a patient home so that they don't have a return to the hospital for some complication.
So that's really new medicine. When you start thinking about this from when you were a nurse. New medicine is okay, we want to make sure that you don't go back to the hospital, so we have to do everything. It's really prevention. After you've had the problem, now it's prevention, more prevention, right?
Right, and safety. I mean, safety is a big... I mean, you think about it, people go to the hospital, even if... not just even, but say they had a gallbladder or whatever, they've had surgery. Well, they're on different medications. They've been under anesthesia. There's a lot of things that impact how we are able to function. Anesthesia, for some people, they go through it. It's no big deal. And some people, it affects them for weeks. I mean, they can't remember which medications. They can't. So if you send somebody like that home, you can just picture how bad things can become. And a lot of the reasons people are readmitted to the hospital is medication mismanagement.
When I think about what you're just saying too, is that Medicare is very strict. So if Medicare will pay for you to go to Regents Park or Boca Raton, it's got to be good. They've got to have a reason why they're paying for it.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, they don't want people going back to the hospital either, Medicare, nor does the hospital. But there are very strict guidelines under Medicare, and we follow them. Nobody wants to get caught by Medicare by doing something they shouldn't be doing. So, we have our annual inspections. We're now a 5-star rated facility under Medicare.
It's very important.
It is.
Doesn't come easily.
No, it doesn't.
Thanks to you and your...
So, you want to make sure that people are safe, that they understand the medications they're on, that they're set up with the right aftercare, whether it's home health or outpatient therapy, depending on the situation. If they live alone, are they really capable of going back home alone? Do they need somebody with them? And there's so many considerations with our population that have to be looked at. And a lot of times, I'll tell you, we've talked about this before, the family comes down from wherever, the kids, and they realize when they go into mom's apartment or dad's apartment or condo that they haven't been okay. So they weren't okay before whatever mishap they had, so they shouldn't have been alone, because, we can all hold a conversation and sound fine, but it's a short conversation. It doesn't, it's not probing. When you see some of the conditions some of these people are living in, it's amazing.
Listen, Leslie, I'm a busy lady like you are, and sometimes my refrigerator is not as clean as I'd like it to be. And I go into my vegetable bin where I have some things tucked in the back, and you can see they're all slimy because I didn't use the cucumber or the tomato. And you can picture, and I'm pretty good. I make the meals for Bill and for me, and I mean, but these things happen. Sometimes you look into the bathroom and the last person that went didn't clean themselves the way it was. But you imagine, and I'm always after this stuff. Can you imagine what that's like if someone doesn't see well and can't even get down on their hands and knees to clean up things?
Oh yeah, and when my mom was alive, I remember looking in the bathroom at the sink. She didn't realize it wasn't as clean as what she would have had it look like, because the vision wasn't as good.
Exactly.
So, there's a lot of things that play into it. Arthritis, they can't reach around. A lot of things they just simply can't do anymore. And then short-term memory, you can see the pans have been burnt by them forgetting to take it off the stove. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to be looked at when we're talking about the elderly.
Yeah, and so I think the whole part of this short-term rehab is one of what is the reason why people are living longer. And I keep attributing, what is it besides all the good medical care? Why are people living longer? And we know that there's a lot of technology that has helped them, and I have to add short-term rehab to that, and people like you and your staff who are there watching out for them, because when they're ready to go home, they think they're ready to go home.
Oh, yeah.
You have to really intercede and explain, and then you have to figure out where they can go if they can't go home, if it isn't your beautiful community.
Right. I mean, it's, a lot of people, maybe they've been living independently but not doing so well. Maybe assisted living is appropriate for them. And there's a lot of very nice assisted living facilities out there, but they've never checked into it, and nobody really recognized that probably is where they should be.
And at that time in their life, they don't even know the questions to ask. So do you, as a, and your, of course, your title, is business development, but your title should be humanitarian. So you would then look over someone and say, listen, let's get this person helping them and all, and then you have to call their family members and explain all this. I mean, it's a big responsibility.
Yeah. Well, the social workers do the discharge plan. A lot of times, before they even come in as, an admission, we can see that there are issues, just from what we've read in their medical record in the hospital. So we kind of can jump on it, before admission, or a son or daughter comes to tour and they start talking. And of course, now we, start getting more information. And, I can start a referral right then and there for looking at assisted living places for them, because it's pretty clear that mom or dad cannot really go back home, not alone.
Yep. And then you help arrange maybe for a home health agency to come in, or
right,
companion care or something.
Whatever it is that, they need.
All right. Now, let's stay with the short-term rehab, but then I want to go to long-term. And I said long-term rehab, and you told me, no, there's no long-term rehab. It's different. Okay. But what does short-term rehab really consist of? Let's just say someone's had, maybe a shoulder replaced or something.
Right. Well, first of all, you have 24-hour nursing care, because, again, you've got pain management. You've got a lot of issues. Then there's physical therapy, occupational therapy. We do have speech therapy. Joint replacements probably wouldn't need it, although you never know, because then you find out that they have Parkinson's or something that, we can call them in. There are 2, I believe, registered dietitians on staff who, meet with them the day after admission and find out what their preferences are, what kind of diet they should be on. Doesn't mean that that's what they've been doing, but, we try. We have psychiatrists that comes in. We have psychology that comes in. So, whatever resources we need, we can pull in. Most of them are on staff, in the facility. Obviously, a physician would be managing their care. But so whatever their needs are, we can take care of them while they're there.
Okay, so let's say this person likes certain kind of food, and they go to the dining hall, and is all marked down? When Mrs. Jones comes in, that she gets this, and Mr. Smith gets that?
Yes.
It's all carefully figured out. So okay. So how do you know? This sounds so stupid, but so Mr. Smith decides to come to dinner. Now, when he walks in, does everybody know that's Mr. Smith, or does he have a tag, or how does?
Well,
everybody?
he's got a wrist bracelet on, and if they're on dietary restrictions and they have a color-coded wristband on,
so when they sit down, someone comes up to them and learns who they are, and then checks everything.
Right. And I think I was doing breakfast duty last week, and the dietitian is my partner on the day I do it. And she said, no, you cannot have more lox. You can't have lox every day. It's too much. But she knows these people, right? I mean, it's amazing. I was like, how do you remember that? I can't remember my phone number, and she knows what they
Yeah, because food is so important for all of us, right? But then to them mostly. In fact, I was told years ago that the way that people, maybe if their memory isn't so good, they know what time of day it is because they know breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah. Food is important, especially, if you're away from home, and you're kind of, you're going to eat. We certainly have many options for what they can eat, but it's not what they would normally eat, probably. So it is important to get that right. And sometimes, people, no matter what you serve them, they're not going to be happy.
You just said something that you have actual kitchen duty?
Breakfast duty. We all take turns, managers. One day every other week, we help serve breakfast.
And why is that?
Well, it keeps us out there with the patients, and they like it. And it's like going into a restaurant. We take their order, we get them their food.
You're not cooking the food.
No, they wouldn't want to eat it if I was cooking it.
But that's very nice. I don't know when that started, but I don't know if anyone does. That's a lovely idea.
It is. And the breakfast is a big deal. They have everything imaginable there for breakfast. Like I said, the lox platter, oatmeal, muffins,
waffles,
potatoes, waffles,
pancakes,
eggs cooked to order. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I've always been impressed at Regents Park, I have to say. Not only, we've talked a lot about the environment and how beautiful it is, but I think we ought to talk a little bit about the owners, because they've owned this for a long time, and they seem to be so dedicated to their residents.
Yeah, they run a clean ship. It's done well. They've got good staff, and some of them live in Miami, and some of the other owners live in Chicago, where they own I think maybe 2 facilities. But they come in at least once a week and check on things and make sure things are going okay. And so, yeah, they do a very good job.
Unlike a lot of, and it's family owned, unlike a lot
family
of
owned.
corporate owned.
Yeah.
Which, it's not the same. I've always thought family owned, as long as it's a good family, it's better. And they've been there, 40? A long time.
The building's been around for, it's 31 years now. And I think they've owned it for maybe 24, something like that.
And for those of you who just tuned in, I'm talking to a marvelous woman, and her name is Leslie Curtis. And Leslie is, she's someone who's been in the nursing field for a long time. If you would like to call and have a tour, I always suggest you have a tour and maybe even have a little sample of the food that they that they produce for you. But she's a very, very sweet woman, and she will certainly help you. And if you're thinking about yourself or a family member, go and check it out first. Excuse me. So the phone number to call Leslie is 561-483-9282. That's 561-483-9282. Not going to give you the extension. Just ask for Leslie Curtis, and they'll find her. Leslie has been doing a lot of this with us for many, many years. They're always at the Boomer Expo, and they're always all around. They're out and about. And let me tell you how you get to Regents Park. It's hidden, and that's a good idea because it's like you're living in a residential community. You're not there out on Federal Highway or right out on Glades Road. You're tucked away where other people live, and that's really a lovely way, I think. So it's actually right near the mall, the Boca Raton Mall, and it's Verde Trail if any of you live in that area. But you can just call them at the 561-483-9282, or you can go on their website. They have a glorious website. It'll show you everything. It'll show you what it looks like. It's regentsparkboca.com. regentsparkboca.com. My friend Lauren did a great job on that website, and you will really love it, and it tells you so much. Leslie, it's hard to believe when we didn't have websites before, what we did.
I know.
We had people, you sent them brochures.
Sent them brochures, and you pounded the pavement.
Right, exactly.
Which, of course, we still do, but
differently. Now someone can look at it and say, well, that looks like a nice place. I'll try that.
Right.
And so it's a very different world that we live in, too, but it's very good. All right, now let's go back to, and we know that when someone comes there, they'll get everything they need for that time, that duration. They've got the television, they've got everything. They can have visitors, everything they want. But let's go now to what you said, you can't have long-term rehab.
Yeah, it's long-term care, and those are those residents that live with us. They live there. Actually, we work where they live. I guess would be the best way to say it. They require 24-hour care. For one reason or another, they're either immobile or maybe they've got some dementia. It wouldn't be safe to be in their home setting. And this provides for our long-term residents, there's many activities during the day. So we keep them up and about. They don't just lay in their bed. They get up, they have their breakfast, and then there's activities starting right away for them. So they can stay busy all day. And
but they're free to roam.
Oh, yeah. They get themselves all over the place. They do.
Love when you have your big parties.
Yes, they do.
I mean, they think it's their party. They're the hosts. And I always get a kick out of them. And that's really nice for them because sometimes you think, well, maybe they feel, why are all these people coming into my home? I don't want to see them. But,
right.
But they love the food that you put. Oh, the food that you do for the holiday parties is really atrocious. Atrocious that it's so delicious. It's so big. It's so much.
It is.
It's just amazing what you do.
And the thing with
you gonna have them in separate rooms like you did before?
No.
Oh, that was really hard.
Yeah.
Just put it in one big place like you do, okay?
That's what we're going to do.
That's better.
But, they've started some new things for the long-term residents. They have cooking class twice a month. They get together and they cook something, obviously with some assistance. But so they're doing, they're trying new things like that. They love that.
I remember you used to do that somewhere else. And
Yeah.
and I would, as I was doing my rehab, I'd pass by and say, how do I get some of that soup? I mean, it was really wonderful.
I can't remember the last thing they made, but they have a ball. They put their little chef hats on and they have
Right.
a really good time.
Well, that's because, most older women cooked.
Right.
And it brings it back. I know my mother, when my mother actually had dementia, but I'd put her into the kitchen when I was making food, and I asked her, well, what else should I add to this? And she loved it. I'd have her taking and grating something, carefully.
Yeah, it's therapeutic. We have silver sneakers that come in for our long-term residents. I mean, there's a lot that goes on. We have pet therapy, where the pets come in and visit. There's a lot of things that go on for the long-term. We just did our planting. They go out and they plant a bunch of plants in this one area, and they love that. I mean, it's just, so we try to keep them busy and occupied. A lot of them are avid readers. So we have a pretty large library in there. Yeah, it's
because we realize they're not on computers, though really
Right.
much older. And so the daily newspaper's there, and they get to read. And then I'm sure television's very important to them.
yeah.
But group television, a lot of them are just in their room. But isn't it better for them all to be together?
Well, I mean, they can do either because they're in the main dining room for the long-term residents. There are 2 big flat-screen TVs. They can watch TV in there. They each have their own TV and remote, so they can really do what they want. And, when they live there, you get to know them. So you can see when something's not quite right, I mean, run to the nurse and say, you need to come help me. Something's not right. I don't mean something major, but just they seem off, So it's a lot of people backing up. It's not just nursing dealing with the residents that live there. It's really everybody.
Yeah, it's a phenomenon in our country now with having these types of places, and really on a scale of 1 to 10, they go from 1 to 10.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
They
we
really
know
do.
that, and you have always been at those 10s.
Yeah, it's a beautiful facility. It's
The landscaping is
the
gorgeous, isn't it?
landscaping, the gardens, and it's nice, especially now. It's not incredibly hot out, but they love sitting out there in the gardens. I mean, I would too. It's just nice. A lot of squirrels, ducks. The ducks. There's a sign finally, please do not feed the ducks.
Oh, they're getting fat and sassy, and they probably come up out of the water, and they follow them into their rooms if they would allow them.
If they would, yeah. And ducks make a mess.
I know.
So
So this sounds like a crazy question. So what if someone lived there, but they want to come there rather, but they have a pet? They can't bring their
They
pet,
can't.
can they?
No.
You haven't gotten there yet.
no. Now our short term, I mean, family members can bring the pets in to visit on a leash, but they can't stay there.
I'm not coming. Sorry, I'm just going to have to stay at home.
Yeah.
I can't leave my dog.
We see a lot of
Yeah.
puppies and big dogs coming in to visit.
Yeah, I'm sure that's pet therapy has been very, very popular. But the nice part about all this is that there are caring people there to help them.
Absolutely.
And that's really what the whole point is. When you would read some bad things about people in these little, they're not the quality that you are, but you see it's like maybe 12 rooms, and there's a couple there taking care of them, and they're doing it for the money, and things aren't exactly right. And that always hits the newspaper.
Right.
But for people who really want something that's high quality, if they go there, I always say, go and look at Regents Park. It's certainly, they have their doors open, and you've always welcomed people to look at what the potential is. And maybe it isn't for you right now. Maybe you're thinking about having either plastic surgery, maybe you're thinking about having something, and you don't have to be an older person. This is not a 55-plus community.
Right. Right.
That's important that we mention that.
We do get younger patients for short-term rehab, and usually those are joint replacements. They live alone. They just had their knee done or both knees done at one time, or hips or shoulders. They can't go directly home. So we do see younger and younger people. And the older people are looking younger and younger. So I
It's hard to know,
yeah.
isn't it? Yeah, no, it really does make a difference. We have started an article. I don't know if it started in this issue, but in December we're starting it definitely. And there's a gerontologist, Dr. Ken Dykewald, who is world renowned. Really, he's American. Yeah, I did start it. Maturity Reimagined, and it's so good, and it talks about. The first sentence is, we need to get 10 to 15 million mature people doing productive, useful, needed things for their communities because they've got the time, the wisdom, and the experience to do so. And there are so many unfulfilled needs out there right now. And this is a talk that he made many years ago, just recently, actually. And I know that you have volunteers. That's what I'm leading up to. You do have volunteers.
Yes,
and they
do.
come and, what do the volunteers do? Do they push people around in wheelchairs or what?
There are several different kinds of volunteers. Some will come in and just, I don't mean just, everything is helpful. Work with the activity department and on different activities. Some of them will just come and, visit with some of the patients. So it depends on the volunteer and what they're hoping to get out of it. Usually if they come, it's, once a week or maybe once every other week. And then, of course, we have the young kids that are doing volunteer work for school, which is always great for the residents. And again, usually they're much more involved with the long-term residents and working with them and crafts and, arts and crafts. So it's good. And, we're right next to Verde Elementary.
Yes, you are.
So we have...
Oh, you have a relationship with them?
Yeah. They'll come in as well. So it's nice.
Yeah, because unfortunately, people don't get to see their grandchildren as much. So at least they see children. I've always believed that's really important for people to do that. So we're having a longevity revolution, and that's what Ken says. And I've always believed that everything is new thinking, new services, new ideas, new languages. I've noticed you have a lot of people speaking different languages at your community.
We do. And don't forget, especially, people that might have some cognitive issues, they'll lapse at times into their original, language, which could be anything from Spanish to French to,
Russian.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you have a lot of people, though, with all those backgrounds helping, and I've seen that. And that's really important to them. Okay, well, let me give some information. I think it's really important that we do that. So Leslie Curtis is here with us, and she's been here. She's been doing this a long time. She's very, very passionate about this. And Regents Park, you can call them at 561-483-9282, 483-9282. And their website is Regents Park Boca, regentsparkboca.com, and just ask for Leslie. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you so much. Good to see you again.